Hello, hello. All right. I think we're live. Cool. Hello, everyone. A bit of a different time this time. Just want to check that you can hear me all right and that you can see the camera. If there's anyone already in the chat, that'll be great. Hey, Ramon. You can hear me all right? It's 10 p.m. here. Hey, Dushko. Is the sound coming through all right? Again, this is a new mic, or a new setup anyway. There's a little bit of a delay as well, so we'll just wait a bit. Cool. All right. So first thing I should say is that I'm in daddy duty. So I'm just kind of like checking, and my kid just woke up. So I'm gonna have to go back in just a bit. But anyway, I'll just show you what the idea for today is. Gonna be pretty chill. I have some background music and everything ready to play. That is YouTube safe. I'm gonna fire that up. So this is gonna be kind of like a fly in a wall type of thing, where I'm just gonna work on the creature for the deep for the contest, and then you guys can work alongside me or ask any questions. It's gonna be pretty chill. It's gonna play. Let me know if you can hear that at all, or is it just me? Let's see. Do you guys can hear that background music a little bit? Hey, Jesus. Um, yeah. All right. Cool. So, like I said, I'm in daddy duty, so I'm gonna be back in just 5 minutes. But let's switch to this very quickly. So I have collected a few references of the things that I'm gonna go through, and yeah, we're gonna jump into this sort of like creature stream in just a bit. I'm gonna be back. All right, give me 5 minutes. All right, all good. Alrighty. So yeah, just a couple of things to get out of the way. Hey, Visual, Yuri. Hello, hello, hello from Greece. Fecha del curso de anatomía. So Jesus is asking for the anatomy for superheroes course. That is still in the works, but it's coming pretty soon, like within a couple months, which is pretty exciting. We're going to release first the other course that we've been working for the past, on texturing. So I'll give you more information about that, but that's coming pretty soon anyway. All right. So like I was saying before, let me just bring in this pure riff. So the idea for this stream, at least, is to start with something casual that I can do, and then you guys, if you want to ask questions about the process, the workflow, whatever the case might be, I'm happy to answer those questions, but also kind of like help you guys work on the creatures of the deep contest. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, if you go to the Pablander Academy, that's the new website. I'll just show you what I mean. So just head to the Pablander Academy and scroll down a little bit, and you'll see Creatures of the Deep contest. So this is the contest that we're currently working on. You still have 32 days to go through it and to participate. and all you have to do is just create some cool deep sea creature with a story, kind of like a companion type of thing, something like that. It will inspire you or inspire other artists. So if you want to learn more about this, just click on join event, and that basically just shows you the dedicated page for the creatures of the deep. And this is something that is being, by the way, this is kind of like a quick concept that I did. It's not like the best thing, but it's just something to showcase the idea for the workshop. So I did this as a quick test, and then I created this creature. So we're gonna work on something similar, less character and more like an actual sea creature, like a whale or giant squid, that sort of thing. But I just wanted to show you this because this is sponsored by XP Pen. So XP Pen reached out and they wanted to share this. So the first prize gets a magic drawing pad, which is a really cool tablet, like a companion tablet. That's the whole idea. You'll see in there. I'm also working on a full review for that tablet. So just keep an eye on the YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, just check that out, and I'll put it up within the next couple of weeks or something. Anyway, so here are all the rules to participate. You can share it in Discord. You can also participate purely on Instagram if you prefer. But it's going to be pretty simple and pretty easy to do. Like I said, all you have to do is read the brief, create your creature, recreate your image that's going to be inspiring or based on everything that we have here in the rules of how to participate, and just work on that concept and then share it either on Instagram or in Discord. And we already have some really cool ideas in Discord. Some people already started to share their ideas in the work in progress, so we can give feedback and that sort of thing. So yeah, today is basically that. It's just we're gonna work on something that is related to this contest. And of course, along the way, I'm gonna do this in ZBrush, by the way. But along the way, if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. I have the chat also right next to me. I don't know how to put the chat here in. It doesn't matter. I'll just have it in another window. And I have a bunch of references as well. So I think I'm going to start with a simple blockout that probably ZSphere is going to be easier. And a lot of this is going to be just like chill sculpting. So I'm not going to be talking all the time. Let's see how that goes. And right now, by the way, I have the Cintiq as a monitor, so I'm not like literally using the Cintiq, but I will be doing that in a bit. So I'm going to press X to go into symmetry, and I'm going to create the hierarchy of the ZSpheres. So one at the bottom and one at the top. And we can actually make this, you know what, kind of like a sideways thing. So I'm going to move it like so. So it makes more sense than, if I'm going to make kind of like a whale type of creature, it's not going to be standing up or vertical. So it's going to be horizontal. And this is more than enough to get us going with something interesting as the base. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because this is how easy you can block something out to get you started and pretty much play with the proportions without committing to any sculpting just yet. So I'm going to create another one here. This is going to be probably the tail or one of the tails. I don't know how many this creature is going to have. And this one in the middle, I'm going to make it a bit larger as well. So I'm looking at things like the beluga whale. Just want to show you a little bit of the idea here. So look at that. That's sort of like shape, like it looks like almost like, I think these ones are the creatures that partly as a myth or in part of the mythology, they were saying that the sailors were confusing these with like mermaids type of thing, because they have like a very, they look almost like human in terms of the, like almost like there's a human inside them, or at least some of them do. I don't know where I heard that one, but see, this is what I mean. Like this is like the shapes of these beluga whales kind of like suggest that. So I'm kind of like looking at this as a reference for the volumes, right? And even though it's going to be a made up creature, it's always good to ground your design in reality. So getting some references or some stuff that you can do, that'll be generally speaking a really good idea. By the way, I don't know if you guys can hear the music. Just let me know, or if it's too loud. I just have some background music on loop, just to have like a bit more of a atmosphere, chill. Have my tea as well. It's 10 p.m. here. I think this guy could be just like a very stumpy creature. Hello from Romania. I was watching a documentary the other day. Well, my wife was, and I just went by, and it was pretty interesting. So I stayed there, about Romania. And I didn't realize how close the um, the language sounds like Spanish. Obviously, it's not nothing like Spanish, but it is closer to Spanish to anything else that I thought it was, which is pretty cool. All right, so I think this hierarchy. By the way, another thing with the ZSpheres, the less spheres that you have, the easier it will be to manipulate things like proportions and change things rapidly. But you know, this is, the more you add, the more resolution that you have to describe kind of like a curvature for like the tail, for example. All right, so I'm spending a little bit of time here just purely because I want to make sure that the flow is interesting. Maybe I should just exaggerate things a bit more. This is gonna be the tail. Make the body a little bit bigger. All right, so that's the basics, right? We have this weird looking thing, but now I'm gonna add the fins, which I'm not sure entirely what they're gonna be, but maybe could be like some sort of tentacles. So I'm gonna add a couple of ZSpheres here, and I'm using symmetry, so I have two. And I just want to show you that this is a process that I really like, purely because it doesn't prevent me from. I mean, you can do this with Sculptris Pro, for example. But what I like about this is that as I push and pull new of these ones and add new ones, it allows me to design. So I'm literally figuring things out as I go. So this could be the theme, but it's gonna be pretty long. And maybe actually this thing can end up in a very narrow sort of like tentacle that connects maybe at the back. And one of the things that this is something that someone else asked me. As I was doing something like that a while back. So let me just pull something so you can see. So if you go back to the Pablander Academy, which again is like the new website, it's really exciting because everything is in here. Everything that I've shared, that I will share, will be here. So if you go to the events, right? Obviously, this live stream is currently here. So this is what the Let's Make It Happen was currently happening. This is something that I did this morning as well. If you're interested with Adobe, this has nothing to do with I'm showing you, but I just realized that I haven't shared this. So this is like the recap here. You can watch it. Is basically texturing for beginners in Painter. Anyway, so what I'm talking about is that in this section right here on the events, you can find all my previous live streams as well. So if you type, there's one called Beluga whale. There we go. So if you type Beluga, there's session 1 and session 2. So these are 2 live sessions that I did a while back, and I basically covered a similar process. You see the beluga whale is kind of like coming through. So this is already in itself a creature or a way to create something that looks like more of a character or creature. So if you want to have more inspiration or have maybe more techniques and ideas on how to create your creature for the contest, these are also pretty good to check out. They're in YouTube as well. So in fact, anything that you see here is kind of like embed from the YouTube channel. So yeah, you just click here and you can watch it straight in there, or you can just go to the YouTube channel and do it there. But anyway, so the reason I showed you that is because I got a question about this type of ZSpheres, right? So if I want to do a fin, something that is, thin, how can you do that with the ZSpheres? The straight answer is you can't, because in order to do that, you'll have to create multiple ZSpheres and create like a web of ZSpheres, and that could be messy. So the easiest thing is just create it based on the volume that you that you think that fin will have. So in other words, from the side, this is kind of like the profile of that fin, right? And then what you do is afterwards, when you create the topology, then you just flatten this out. So I'm going to show you how to do that. That's the reason why I created this. However, this has a little bit, has the potential to work as a tentacle as well. So that's why I'm taking it easy with the ZSpheres. So I like the sort of like shape of a trident, like so. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna add another one here just to add a little bit of curvature. And here, obviously, we're gonna have to figure something out for the actual, not the dorsal. What's the name of this one? Like the tail. I don't think this guy would have any dorsal, but let's just add one. We can get rid of that later. But you see how like this is like a really simple and easy way to block out the creature. And if you want to change things at any point, you can press, let's say, the scale, right? And you click on the connection of two ZSpheres, and that will change. I just do that. Oh, this is the main one. That will change the size of the entire kind of hierarchy. So I can just push this even more, reduce that. Like it's a really easy way to play around with proportions. Now, something that is even cooler, I think, is that ZSpheres, even though they're like different type of objects in ZBrush, as in it's not a mesh, it's just a ZBrush kind of like its own thing. You can have polypaint. So, or you can use different materials as well. So I can switch to my comics material, skin shade for all of that good stuff. So the reason I'm showing you that is because you can go to color. I have it here in my UI, but I just always have to try to remember for those of you who don't have like custom UIs. In the color, you cannot, sorry, not color, document, you can change the background color. So with this button right here. So I'm going to change the background to be black. So click, drag and drop to the black color. So now the background is black. And then I'm going to switch from preview to flat, which for you guys would be under the render palette. I think render palette. See, this is the thing. Now I forgot what things are that I don't usually go into these things to find. What am I looking for? Oh, here, sorry. Preview and flat. So these two buttons, that's what I have here. Can you see it on the screen? Yeah. So I'm going to click on flat. There's like this bug, but you just need to move it around. All right. So now we have this flat version that allows you to see this almost like in a silhouette. So you can judge things a bit easier. This one is in fact not the way that I use it, but I thought like just a wide screen would be harder to see. In fact, let me just show you. This is how I use it. So I make this white, and the actual color is going to be black, so that you don't see the connections. All right. So this is more like how I use it. So you basically work with silhouettes and judge the entirety of your mesh based on that proportion. And I think this is like super important to decide what to go for. So you see, like right now, I can see that the body is kind of like too small for the rest. So I'm not sure if that would be a good thing. So I can just go in, select my ZSpheres, scale them a little bit more, maybe reduce that a tiny bit, or increase it, but make it thinner later on. So this is, to me, one of the most valuable things about this whole process is that you can change quickly these type of things, and you're still evaluating the silhouette. Now, alternatively, I'm just going to go back to my usual setup. By the way, this button right here, gray background, this is just a custom macro. You can create this like a set of actions. Oh, sorry, I missed the chat. Sometimes I just get into the zone. Let me see. Hey, Christian. I think I already said hello to chill music. Cool. Yeah, nice. Okay, so where do you do the final renders? I use a bunch of renders, to be honest. there's no like a specific render tool that I use. I just go with whatever feels right for the job. There's obviously some renders would have some benefits over certain other renders. So for instance, Blender, which is super powerful, is free. That's obviously a big benefit. I would choose, let's say, Blender cycles of Marmoset if, sorry, if, for example, my mesh is not like perfectly ready, and maybe I want to readjust a little bit of the geometry, or I want to create some kind of like scenery to go along with the render. It's a lot easier to do it in Blender because you have all these extra tools. Whereas if you do it for if you do it in Marmoset, is mostly a rendering tool, and well, now texturing tool as well, but I don't texture with Marmoset. So if I know that what I have is ready to go, and I don't have to adjust anything else, everything that I export from ZBrush is ready to go, I might use Marmoset. Same thing with something like Maverick. Maverick doesn't have any tool to adjust the topology or adjust the geometry. For example, if you send your character in to render, and then you realize that there's some weird intersection of geometry that you didn't realize it was there, if you send it to Maverick or you send it to Marmoset, that's it. Like, you can just render that out, but it will have that issue. Whereas in Blender, you can go into edit mode, you can adjust the points, little things like that. Or if you want to stick with Marmoset or Maverick, for example, you just go back to ZBrush, adjust it, and send it over. So there's no like a single tool that I would say, oh, this is what I render my things in. It really based on how I feel, and how the project feels. All right, I think I'm just going to create something interesting here, just so I don't talk too much. So I think I'm gonna go for some sort of like shark head as well. I don't know. I just have this really cool reference of these giant rays, and I really love the whole. Like, I can't believe like this is like a real thing that exists. You know what I mean? Like this type of like the shapes and how all these I don't know how this creature evolved to me is crazy. So doing something like that would be really interesting to have alongside the face or like the head. So I'm just doing this. They're not antennas, but because we're using ZSpheres, that's just how they look. But I'm hoping to do something like that. Here's another tip when you're using ZSpheres. Let's say that you want to do something that tapers from like a thick one to a thin one. Obviously, you can click on adding a new one, a smaller one, and push it and that sort of thing. But if you establish your ZSpheres, let's go ahead and delete that one. Let's say that this is the main one. Then you can add another one that is a tiny one, and the tiny one represents the end of that taper. And then you can use the move tool and push that out, and then you just fill that gap in between, or like that connection in between, and then you can adjust that taper. So maybe make this one thicker and this one as well. All right, so again, I'm kind of like looking at it from different angles just to see what this could be, and I'm also going to use the rotation tool. One thing as well that I tell, for example, the students of the Extra Mile is that to treat the characters or like anything that you do in ZBrush or in 3D as their own sort of composition in itself. So I'm looking at this in these different angles. So this creates this almost like a half sphere from this angle as a composition is nice and balanced. Same thing from this angle, but then now that I look at it from this angle, then I can just go ahead and try to maintain that flow with a similar sort of curvature as this. So little things like that really help. And obviously from the top, I think that works fine. So I have those main fins sticking out from this. I'm just doubting that I should put this one in here, but I'm gonna add a few more. So same technique from here. I'm gonna add one, and I need to add maybe one in here. I'm just thinking maybe one in here. All right. So let's go ahead and add a couple more. And same deal as before. So we add a tiny one there and a tiny one there. And then we can use the move tool to move that out of the way. And these ones are going to be relatively small. I want to try to create some sort of pattern or like a visual pattern here. And let's create another one in between. That way we can sort of give them shape. All right, so these are going to be obviously fins and they're going to be flat, but when you're dealing with this type of Z-spheres, this is probably the easiest way to set things up. If you want more volume, for example, this is a good example actually. If you want something that that tapers, or like it starts thin and then spreads like a. I have a few reference here, so let's go do that. Which one would be a good example? This fish stuff is really weird. There was like one guy ages ago. I read it in Reddit, and it talks about this fish that like went on a rant on how useless these are. It was like really funny, but I can't remember the name. Oh, here's a good. Well, this is an illustration, but I'm trying to find a good example of what I'm here. All right. So if you look at this, the fin of this whale, so it starts smaller or like narrower, and then it goes up. So it tapers out and then it tapers back in roughly. This one is probably a much better one. So something narrow and then something narrow here, but in the middle, you have that sort of like bell shape, right? So you can achieve the same thing with the Z-spheres. That's pretty much what I have in the larger sort of fin. So what I'll do here, if I want to replicate that, right? So I'm going to add a new one right here with Q, and let's do one as well here. And I'm going to press the E on my keyboard to scale that. And I'm going to scale that one as well. And then I'm just going to scale this one up, right? So now we have that sort of taper. And remember, because we're dealing with Z-spheres, just think about shapes or volumes in terms of profiles at this point, and then we'll adjust anything that is supposed to be flatter. But yeah, this is pretty much it. And then we can add a couple more. So Q, like so, and that's it. So these are going to be a couple of additional fins, like almost like what's the word for this? I think it's called vestigial. Anyway, like an appendix. So some sort of like extra organ that is of no use, like doesn't do anything, but it could help to balance out the design and the creature itself. And here for the back, I think I'm gonna leave it like that. Maybe this is gonna be a tentacle, and maybe we can do some sort of like frilly things. Is that a word? Frilly? I think so. All right. The rest should be fine. I think in general, this is the shape that I want to go for. And again, the cool thing is that you can save these Z-spheres and then you can tweak them quite a bit. So for example, you can go to Subtool, you can duplicate that, and let's go into solo mode as well. And you can say, you know what, I'm going to try something without this. So I'm going to press the Q on my keyboard. Oops, I did something weird here. What happened there? Hang on. That's fine up to this point. Okay, all good. Let me do it again. So duplicate, hide this one. All right, cool. So with you, if you press Q, which is to add Z-spheres, and you press the Alt key, you delete them, right? So I'm gonna delete this and say, you know what, this might not be what I want for this design. So I'm just gonna do that. And instead, maybe we can try to just move this back. So it really becomes that sort of like trident thing. And maybe that's the way that it sort of has the propulsion type of thing, like an octopus, right? But they're actually kind of like fins coming from the torso of the guy. I don't know. I think this could be interesting. And let's say, this shape might not be what I want to go for, maybe, or at least not the way that I was planning to. Maybe you can play around with the placement, and that would be kind of like more like the manta ray, like the giant ray type of thing, and no dorsal fin. Okay, so a much simpler, cleaner silhouette, right? But this takes like a few seconds, right? So we have this and this other version, and you can just keep duplicating things. So I'm gonna do one more just for the sake of demo, where maybe I don't want to have any of these things, or at least not so thin. Maybe like a chunky one. And you know what? I have an idea actually. So, and this is another really cool thing about the process, right? Because as you create these things, and maybe you make an accident, or maybe you push things in a way that you were not really thinking of doing it, but it gives you ideas. And then you can just roll with it. So I'm gonna make some sort of like shape for the head here, but I'm gonna go here to the top and then to the bottom. And don't worry, this is going to look a lot more interesting when we get to it. But I'm gonna do kind of like an inverted or sideways hammer shark type of thing. And another thing that it's important is to have like, and we talked about this with Gio. If you missed it, we have a really cool live stream with Gio Nakpil where he showed us some really incredible tips and talked about form and function, and how things look cool. And he actually created a pretty creepy but awesome looking creature in the same sort of vein of what we're talking about, the creatures of the deep for the contest. And he did mention that he always has a little like humanoid mesh inside the tools just to compare and to maintain scale. So one thing that I just noticed with this one compared to the other ones, right? So these ones will feel a lot more like a larger scale, like a more colossal type of creatures. Whereas this one, it immediately feels a bit smaller because of these spheres right here, because they have the eyes, and that already suggests that because of the size of the eye, this is a much more smaller creature. So just to remove that, I'm just gonna delete it and make this like really chunky, just to try to maintain that the nice scale of the creature that I'm gonna go for. Alrighty. So I think I'm gonna start with this one. I think it's still a solid one. I just wanted to show you this technique and this way of approaching this type of creatures with symmetry and everything. It's really easy, and you can just spend a few minutes doing it and then a few more minutes variating it. So let's have a look at the chat and see if there's any questions that I can cover. Hello from Denmark. Hey, Johannes. Cool. Hey, James. How's it going? Hi, Rhiannon. Yeah, cool. So let's move on. And if you have questions about this, we'll talk about this later. But once I have something that I like, I personally prefer to work with a very low resolution blockout rather than the Dynamish. So if you scroll down to the, hang on. All right, so we have the subtools. If we scroll down here to the adaptive skin, then you can preview it. Obviously, you can press A as well, and that shows this as a Dynamesh object. It looks blocky, but it is actually Dynamesh. The reason that looks like this, or this preview looks like that, is because we have Dynamesh and we have a density of 2. So what I'll do is, and this is what I do with most of my ZSphere projects when I start with ZSpheres, is to turn Dynamesh completely off so that there's no there's no dynameshing happening. And then if I press A, you'll see what I have now is just like the ZSpheres turned into a traditional sort of like skinning, where you have like quads, right? Like subdivision. So and a density of 2 is also totally fine. So I'm gonna click on make adaptive skin. Now the cool thing about this process is that I can save all my shapes or my my ZSpheres as a Z tool. So I can save this as a single tool, save that out of the way. And then I also have the generated skins, this is one of them. So I'm gonna delete lower. We don't need that to be so low. And I think this one is a good starting point, but we can just divide it a couple more times or just one more time. And obviously there are things that we need to, adjust, like the smoothness of this, right? But again, this is just a good starting point, a good volume that we can start adjusting, and we can do a quick zero measure and start creating that shape that we want. So for that, I want to switch to more like a Cintiq mode. Hey, Quentin. Hey guys, I have a quick question. Just because I got this new setup here, and I was wondering if you can hear this. So I'm gonna make there's some effects, but for some reason I think they're not coming through in the stream. Let's try if you can hear me as a megaphone. Can you hear me like that? Does that make any difference?
Or if I speak like this, do you hear that? This is more like for a creature stream. If you can hear that.
Anyway, if you heard like a different type of voice, let me know, because I wanted to see if the effects actually work as an output on the stream. Yeah, sweet. Excellent. For that, I have this. Sweet. All right. So I'm just switching to the Cintiq here. Thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me know. To be honest, I just wanted them purely for, if I make a bad joke, that sort of thing. Anyway, let's go back in here. I'm also trying to figure out the best setup for the mic so that I can work with the tablet and not cover what I have. But yeah, I think you can hear me all right. Let me put it on the side. All right, cool. So once I have these, right, this base, I'm gonna turn on polyframe so you can see what I'm doing. What I like doing is to go to the move tool, to the move topological, sorry, make sure I have AccuCurve enabled. And for those of you who don't know about AccuCurve, that's the difference mainly is that you can just create these really pointy effects. Without AccuCurve, it just creates more of a like a rounder shape. So I personally just like to use it, and for you guys, it would be under the brush palette, curve, and AccuCurve. All right. Now the next thing is that when you're working with ZSpheres, it really depends on how much you scale that ZSphere and how many ZSphere you add to create a longer sort of chain of ZSpheres. But right now, this is pretty big. So I'm going to make sure before I continue doing anything, I want to click on Unify. And Unify is for you guys on the deformation palette, Unified. So this will ensure that whatever I have is going to be reduced or amplified, whatever, scale up and down to fit the 2x2x2 units, which is what ZBrush prefers to work with. So now all my brushes will work nicely and everything will behave a lot easier and better. So that's it. All right, so now that I have this, my priority will be to adjust the volumes so that it doesn't look as flat. So I can just take this and make large sort of like adjustments, maybe something like this, and obviously using the smooth brush. And the reason I use the move topological is because it respects that continuity. So there's like a weird thing going on here, but doesn't matter. We're gonna We're gonna fix all of this soon. So I'm not doing any sculpting just yet. This is purely adjustments, nothing else. But before I do anything to do with the series measure, for example, I want to make sure that I have the shapes that I need, so that when I do the series measure, it is being taken into account. So I want to have like a sharper line or visual line from that sort of thing going down. And here, I want to also make this flatter. And this is the beauty of this process, right? Because you started with those volumes or profiles, but because we have very low res meshes, it makes it a lot easier to play with these shapes and get something really cool, really interesting, fairly easy. All right, so this thing would be flatter. And again, without the use of any additional brushes like flatten, or even though you can use them, just with the move brush, you can hold the Alt key and push the geometry based on their normals. So I'm going to use that to just flatten this or move this to sort of like a flatter shape, which is what I want to go for in this case. And I think I want to make this a lot thicker. Now, the other cool thing is because every ZSphere chain, let's say, actually can create a different set of polygroups. I can hold Control and Shift to isolate this, and then do the same thing that I just did with that sort of head shape. And just flatten that bit. So like, this is going to be flatter, but then it sort of becomes more of a tubular shape here towards the end, and that's going to behave more like a tentacle. It's like a mix between a tentacle and a proper fin. I see some activity here in the chat. I'll just take a look in just a second. I guess for today, my aim would be to just block out this a little bit and have something ready for the next session to start sculpting and, do a bit more of the detailing stuff. All right, let's do the same thing with this. And like I said, you can definitely use other brushes. In fact, I'm going to use clay here with Alt to push that in. So you can definitely do that, and it's probably faster. I'm just kind of like used to simplify the entire workflow, even for myself. So I just stick with one brush, but yeah, this is probably faster for this. And I'm just pressing the Alt key. You can also use the standard brush as well. And the standard brush at this level of subdivision is actually pretty easy to adjust. This is something really annoying. Hang on. Oh no, sorry. Sometimes this happens that you lose the pressure if you're using a Cintiq or a tablet if ZBrush does an autosave. So all you need to do to sort of fix that is to minimize ZBrush, or just move it to a different window and click on your Cintiq or click on the tablet in the desktop or whatever, and then just bring back ZBrush, and that usually fixes without the need to resetting any Wacom tablet or restarting anything. So I'm going to use this this standard brush to add volume quickly in here. And because I have so little geometry, if I use the smooth brush, it's going to smooth things out very quickly. So I can hold the Shift key, right click, and I can change that intensity to something pretty low so that everything is, behaving a bit nicer. Alrighty, let's go back to the move topological. Try to keep this nice and clean. And even at this stage, I'm still looking at trying to get a nicer balance with the proportions, really. All right. So I think I'm happy with this to, at least as a starting point. All of these can evolve and change quite a bit. But I kind of like the curvature and all that. Um, Now, if I want to, I can just go ahead and dynamesh this and start sculpting. However, because we have some groups already, it's going to be easier to try to create a better topology with ZBrush. In fact, I'm not going to even use the groups. I'm gonna group visible, so it's just a single group. The only problem is here, which I don't know. Maybe I'm not entirely sure how I mess this part up. But anyway, we'll see how we go with a ZBrush. I have it here in my UI, but for you guys would be on the geometry, ZBrush. I want to click on ZBrush, make sure the symmetry is enabled. Just see what Zero gives me. All right, so there's still definitely something weird going on here. So the way that I fix this, let's go back in here, will be to dynamesh this. That will be the easiest one, really, and then just remesh it. But I have some areas that I need to make sure I don't dynamesh. So these parts that are really close to each other, I don't want to mess with those. I want to make sure that this is nice and clean. And then we can obviously bring it closer once we have a nicer topology. Alrighty, so let's try that again. Let's dynamesh this. That's too low. Let's increase the resolution and polish. Alrighty. So now that fixes that issue. Let's do a ZBrush. And this is another kind of like misconception of this process, that if you use the ZBrush, obviously creates a nice topology, and then you just, you're kind of like stuck with that topology. ZBrush is actually another really cool sketching tool or a sketching feature, because you can generate a nicer topology to work a little bit better, which is kind of like what I just did. But then at any point, if you want to add something, if you want to change things on the fly, or if you want to pull things like that, you just do another ZBrush and that's it. You don't have to stick with the the topology that you get from one ZBrush. You can use it it's exactly the same as you use the dynamesh as a sketching tool. And it works just fine. All right, so I'm still doing like some proportional changes. I like this sort of there's a shark whale, or a whale shark whale. It's a whale. It's kind of like a shark. Well, actually, it's a shark, but it's like a giant whale, and it has a similar shape to this. And I'm kind of like liking it. I'm gonna give you another really cool tip when you're doing this type of like fins, or you want something that, or you want to pull things without. You want to pull things that look kind of like flat, like a fin, but you don't want to destroy. How can I put this? Let's say, all right, let's do it here. Let's say that I want to create, and I'm going to bring in my Epic pen as well, just so you know what I'm talking about. Oh, hang on. Lots of activity here in the chat now. Let me just check. Oh, cool. So the LinkedIn is working. Nice. Awesome. Also, you came from LinkedIn to the Twitch. Excellent. Cool. So what the vacuum pressure sensitivity issue was always a mystery to me. Didn't realize that there was such a simple and quick fix. Look, there might not be an easy fix, but yeah, if you for some reason lose the pressure, at least in ZBrush, it's just a matter of like it happens when it auto saves, or when you save something. If you go and save things, it might throw off the pressure for some weird reason. So the easiest thing for you will be to minimize ZBrush, or just move it to a different window and click on the window, or click on the scene tick, obviously, and that will reset it when you bring it back. The full reset mode, or the full fix mode, is to go to the I think it's what's the name, I forgot the name, the task manager. So the task manager, and there are like some running things. You just need to find one that says Wacom services, and then you just reset that or restart it, and it will restart the Wacom services, and that basically fixes it for that's kind of like the fix for the general fix for all software, not just ZBrush. But for ZBrush, it's pretty easy. Okay, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so right. So look, we have this shape here, which is meant to be like a tentacle, right? But if for some reason you want this to be more like a fin, like a shark fin, like this, right? Let's say something like that, right? Obviously, you'll have to add geometry. You can insert a new subtool if you want to block things out like that. You can do this in different ways. But if you want to actually take geometry from this, from what you already have, to create that shape, then I'm going to show you a really cool tool, which is the backface masking. So if you go ahead and enable backface masking in the move brush, which for you guys would be under the auto masking. Where are we? Auto masking here. So backface masking. So that tells ZBrush that whatever you click, so this is why it works. Whatever you click, let's say if I click this point, right? ZBrush is going to look at what the opposite side of that point is, right? So perpendicular, right? So it's going to look through and it says, okay, there is a point here that I'm not going to touch because the back face of this point is being masked or is being auto masked. So all of these things are going to be like, let's say all of this area is going to be automatically masked, so you won't be able to move it, right? So the manual process would be to select something like the mask lasso, right? You hold control, you mask that like so. Let's move to the normal move brush just so you can see the difference. And then you just pull this like that, right? So that is also a valid process. However, you can do this a lot easier and a lot faster if you use the backface masking because it does the same effect. You see, it automatically masks that out. I'm not sure if I like this. Just wanted to show you, the effect, because now this is more looking like into a shark territory. And I do like the sort of, maybe you can do something like this. That would be more interesting than just having the typical sort of fin. Now, here's an interesting tip. Or not tip, but like, I love nature shows and, biology and natural history and all of that. So I kind of like get into these things because I like it, not necessarily because I can influence my work with these ideas, but thinking about how these little visual things work or remind me of, it helps me inform my work as well in terms of creatures. So if you do something like this, that's going to be more like shark stuff or like any fish, but any mammal that lives in water, it won't have this shape. It will be actually like that, right? So just think about a whale or a dolphin, right? Those are mammals that live on the water. They need to come to the surface to breed. So it will have this type of shape. Whereas fish, in general, they will have that this shape because that's how it is. That's how they evolve. But anyway, so the point is that this is the trick. So I can use that trick or like this to adjust this. And as I pull, I'm gonna automatically protect the other areas. So I can do this very easily. Maybe here as well. I can sort of flatten that out. Especially here, we can do some nice sort of thin connection. And I'm just smoothing as well, by the way, just to keep things clean. That's the aim. Is anyone in the Discord chat? Because we have a dedicated channel for this type of streams that we're now going to try to do more regularly. Just want to double check if you can see it and if you can actually comment from there directly, because I have the it's called the unified chat from Restream, so I can see the questions from wherever you're watching this stream, so LinkedIn or YouTube. All right. So someone was asking about this Primary, secondary, yeah. So the idea is to sort of like establish the forms really before we get into anything else, and that's something that we'll probably do next session. All right. I think we can get into more interesting territory and look at the blockout of the next set of shapes now. I'm still having my doubts about this kind of like thing here. You know what? Let's just remove it altogether. All right, something. I don't know. I'm still trying to decide. One little thing I should point out. Let's say this bit for some reason is kind of like weirdly. I cannot smooth it out properly because of the underlying geometry. I can sort of like try to hide it or get it closer, or even just go with the inflate brush like this first, right? And if I do a zero measure, it's not gonna go away. I'll show you. So when I click on zero measure, the issue is still there because ZBrush just tries to maintain whatever you pull around, and it will just try to describe this mess. So the best thing you can do to fix this type of stuff, if you don't want to dynamish and you have some areas that you spend some time tweaking, if you don't want to do that, you can bring in the gizmo, right, and click on the gear icon, and the gear icon has a bunch of modifiers. So there's this one called the remesh by union. So this is going to look at anything that has like a sort of like an intersection or a mesh that is intersection, and if it is occluded by the, let's say the volume, is going to remove it. So I'm going to accept that. So now it's obviously creating some triangles, but if I smooth this out, you'll see now it should be it's a little bit more. We'll have to inflate it a bit more. There's an easier way to do this, but I just wanted to show you some options. Let's try that again. So remesh by union should do the trick, but if we still getting like a stubborn bit, the easiest one, to be honest, would be to just enable Sculptures Pro, and then just do this to remove it, and then do the zero measure again. I'm gonna smooth this out, do zero measure again, and we now have some cleaner lines to work with. All right, so as a base mesh, actually, 1 second. Sorry, I'm also getting a bit of a cold. Yeah, basically, I did the zero measure without symmetry. So I'm just going to mirror and weld and then rerun the zero measure. So this is what I meant about the zero measure. It doesn't have to be for final topology. It could be exactly for, sketching. I'm going to actually reduce it a tiny bit more. All right. Now we can obviously try to guide this zero measure and try to create something a bit more interesting. So for that, I'm gonna divide everything, delete lower. So now we have plenty of resolution. Again, we haven't started the blockout of the secondary shapes or anything like that. We're just generally trying to establish a nice flow, a nice set of volumes. I keep coming back to this for some reason. All right. So what I want to do is I want to create some polygroups so that I can tell ZBrush where I want to create some loops. So to do that, let's switch to a different material so you can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the select lasso. That's probably the easiest one. So everything to do with this fin is going to be a group. So by the way, sorry, I keep forgetting that that I have my custom UI. So if you go to polygroups, what I've been using is this group visible. So that allows you to group anything that is visible. That's why I hide it first. So let's say the entire head could be a polygroup like that, right? And I can just go group visible. So that's why I have it in my UI, because I can just quickly click on that. And as I hover over this palette, you see this gets highlighted. All right, so for the large sort of tail, I think I'm gonna do it from here. And obviously I grabbed something that is not part of it. So Control Shift, click and drag outside to hide some part. And then holding the Alt key. So Control Shift to access the selection tools. And if you press the Alt key, it's going to invert that selection. So I'm going to hide anything or everything that I don't need. Also, I have double disabled, so I'm going to enable that so that I can see the double-sided geometry. For you guys, that would be under the display properties. It's this one right here. So again, group visible. So now we have a different polygroup. Now let's do these ones here. So I'm going to isolate this green one, just clicking on it. And I'm going to hide this bit. And I'm going to click on group visible. Then hide this bit. Again, Control Shift. And then when I finish the selection, press the Alt key to hide that. And I'm going to click on group visible. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh, I think I accidentally removed this one. So let's do it again. Group visible. Perhaps we can also add another one here. All right, let's try it. Let's try this. Group visible. And I think that would be good. Maybe another one here, just for the sake of showing you. Oops. How you can control the zero measure. All right, cool. So I want to turn off the lines so that you can see purely the colors, right? And again, super sketchy stuff, but this gives you a good starting point to create that sort of topology that you can sort of expand on. One thing is, you notice, obviously, because of the amount of resolution we have, this looks very jagged, this line. So one thing you can do as well is you can run a polish by groups, but that will actually affect the mesh quite a bit. So I'm going to show you. You go to the formation and you can go to polish by group. Where is it? I have it here in my UI again. Polish by groups, which is here. So if I push this slider, pay attention to what happens between the groups, right? So it just polishes those. That is not too bad. I thought it was going to damage the volume a bit more. So that's good because now we have like a cleaner defined line. It doesn't mean that the actual line is cleaner. It just means that it sort of takes the points that are closer to this line and it sort of like smashes them together to create this line. But the reason why this is important or useful is because now we can go to the zero measure, right? And we can say, let's set a target polygon count of 4,000. So these numbers in the thousands or let's go for, I don't know, 3.4, right? 3,400 roughly. I'm going to make sure that adaptive is on so that it adapts the size of the polygons depending on the size of the details that the zero measure needs to describe. I want to make sure that keep groups is enabled. This is basically telling the software, look at the different colors that we have and create a topology that follows that or maintains the loop. So it's basically going to say, so this is what happens behind the scenes when you have these polygroups enabled. It's going to say, all right, I have this color here and this color here. And whenever there is this difference in the colors or in the polygroups, this is going to be a loop, right? Meaning that a very precise loop is going to divide those two polygroups. That's why that's the reason I set this up. So if you're doing like a face, a creature, or like a humanoid face, then you probably have a loop around the eyes and around the eyelids, and then you have like that sort of mask shape, and then the mouth, right? And these are like different colors, right? So that when you do the zero meshing, ZBrush automatically knows where to place those loops. Anyway, that's a different story. So anyway, the only thing that I need to do is have the keep groups enabled, and I don't want to have any smoothing of the groups, because what happens if you leave this on is this going to add, the process is going to add an extra layer of smoothness or an extra process of the smoothness to something that you already did manually. So in other words, you don't have to manually go to the deformation palette and use the polish by groups. You can just keep groups and leave this on to 1. And then when you click zero measure, ZBrush is going to do a similar process to polish by groups to have the clean line, and then it's going to do the zero measure. But because I manually showed you how to do that, and there's no like better or worse ways of doing it, I just used to do it this way. I like to actually see where my lines are before I do this process. So because I did it manually, I'm going to set it to 0. And that's it. Let's click on zero measure. Um, hang on, let me check the chat. Hey, bodybuilder. Oh, nice to meet you. Thank you. Glad that you like the tutorials. Hey, Vivek. Sometimes I really don't know how to pronounce your names, guys. So, is this live on YouTube? Yeah, this is live on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch. Yeah. So this is the reason why I'm trying this new schedule. So usually I do these live streams or like different live streams at 9 a.m. my time. I'm in Australia, so that sometimes for Europe especially is not a great time. So I'm trying to vary it a little bit and try to do some streams like at night. So right now it's 11 p.m. my time. So I should be wrapping up relatively soon. But the reason I'm doing it is just to allow other people that usually are pretty, they follow the work and they follow the streams and they get up or go to bed really late. So just trying to balance it, the schedule a little bit for you guys. Anyway, so you'll see what I have here is actually pretty good. You see the difference on the polygroups have been maintained, and we have a nice set of loops. So now I'm just going to fix these fins because I think these ones are going to be the problem with this topology. So I'm going to make them thicker so that ZBrush can, have a better understanding of what I want in here. Because when you have like something that is really thin, or not really thin, like really pointy and small, ZBrush is like, it's not an important detail or something when you're doing the zero measure. So I want to try to do the same thing. Again, polygroups set to 0, the smooth group set to 0, because now we have a pretty clean loop. And I'm going to just go for the same thing. So let's go zero measure. I think it's better. Let's try it again. Actually, let's go to polish by groups to smooth that out. And let's try it again with less topology. Let's do it again. You can also, hang on, there's an error. This is an important thing. So I think this is a pretty simple mesh, but sometimes this thing happens. You saw an error. Let me show you again. So if I try to zero mesh, there is a remesh error encountered and remesh aborted. So that could be for a bunch of reasons. I think visually the problem might be here. No. Yeah, it might be something in the middle of the line. So if I do zero measure without symmetry, it might work. So the way that I fix this is actually really simple. You go to mesh integrity and you can click on check mesh integrity. So that is going to go and say, okay, the mesh contains 4 faces with multiple references to the same vertex. So in other words, there's like one of these ones. Yeah, anyway, I was going to draw it, but it's basically a problem for ZBrush to do the zero measure. So that's it. This is basically what it encounters. And if you click on fix mesh, it should just fix it. So now if I go back to zero measure, do it again, now it did it, right? So pretty simple stuff. And I'm just thinking that maybe we can connect this to, it's fine. You can click on retrying and it's going to try the same, or it should retry the same sort of settings. Why is it creating this? Let's try it again. Okay, that's better. Cool. So I just need to work on the thickness of these pieces. All right, so let's move a little bit faster now. I still have something, pretty clean and decent. And the topology could be even better. Just doing a quick check of the topology. So yeah, the topology could definitely be a little bit better, but I think this as a concept, it works totally fine. So another thing I want to do is perhaps have some sort of mouth for this creature. So for that, I'm going to use this C modeler. Again, you can do this with Sculptris Pro and then just do another series measure. I'll show you both examples very quickly. So with the zero measure, maybe I want to have like a vertical mouth or something like that. I don't know. I'm just using the Alt key to tag this. And then right click, you can go to Insert and Polygroup All, click and drag, and then you can like insert this bit. And then right click, go to QMesh, QMesh Polygroup All, so that it basically does this QMeshing to any polygroup that has the same color, and then push that in maybe a couple times so that it creates these loops inside. All right, so that would be the effect, or like this would be doing it with the zero measure. I'm going to duplicate this and then go back here in time so I can show you another method. So if you go through the simple method with the zero measure, you can just go ahead and smooth this out. And it basically, you created that additional piece of geometry that can work as the mouth of this creature. I don't know why this would be the mouth vertical, but you know, it could be interesting. Right, so this is basically what that shape would look like. However, I don't know if I like that one. I think I'm gonna use maybe this line. Makes more sense. So the alternative is to use Sculptors Pro. So I'm gonna enable polyframe just to show you what that does. So let's select something like this standard brush. Let's enable Sculptors Pro. Reduce that brush size. You see the brush itself changes to a purple color. And I'm gonna press the Alt key and then just go like this. So as I press, this is going to add that sort of line. And I think this is a little bit ridiculous there. So I'm gonna make the mouth more like an actual shark type of thing. But if I wanna make this creature kind of like a larger creature, it's gonna have to be like that. So I just wanna show you that the Sculptors Pro, this is what it creates. It just generates this geometry based on the resolution and the size of your brush. So if you wanna have more details, you can reduce the brush even more, and then it just adds more points. If you wanna have less, you just increase your brush size. And let's say if you smooth this out, you see the triangles are smaller. So I wanna turn this, this off so that I can show you this. I'm gonna smooth this out. And I'm gonna do the same thing, but pushing harder. All right. So that should create that sort of creature shape. I'm not sure if I like it. Again, it's kind of like getting too close to just like the regular sort of shark. So maybe the mouth is not gonna be like that. So I'm gonna go back. I just wanted to show you if you want to do something like this. I want to do something a bit more interesting for the mouth. Let's try something like this. All right, so I think something like that would be a bit better. I want to show you some really cool techniques now. So obviously I wrecked this, but I don't care because I still have the polygroups. I can still run the zero measure and, you know, doesn't matter. So the technique I want to show you is kind of like to create a mouth bag. It's really easy, really simple. So I'm going to use a masking tool. So this is my custom mask, but you can use the mask pen. It's the same thing. This is just a custom mask because it is just sharper. So I'm going to hold Control and press. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to invert that mask. I'm going to bring in the gizmo, and I'm going to center this gizmo to the unmasked areas. In fact, I'm going to turn off symmetry so that the gizmo is nice in the center. So obviously this allows me to do this, right? To move this section. Now I'm going to push this in to create that hollow area. I'm going to push it even more. So it's kind of like here in the middle, right? And obviously I cannot see what I'm doing and I cannot edit this, and it's a little bit harder. You could obviously go inside in here, and then you can start of like, with Sculptures Pro, you can start moving or adding geometry like so, right? But it becomes a little bit complicated. So what I like to do is I like to disable this double. Again, for you guys would be on the display properties, right? So I disable double. In other words, I'm telling ZBrush, I don't want to be able to see the backside of a plane, let's say, right? So only one side of the face where the normals are pointing. But then I'm going to flip the normals of the entire thing. So if I flip the normals, I'm actually only seeing one side, right? But I'm seeing the opposite side. So I'm just flipping the normals. This is a temporary measure so that no matter how I rotate this guy around, I will see the inside of this. So this allows me to just go ahead and do this, right? So I can scale this like so. I can actually remove the mask that I had. And because I have a Sculptures Pro, right? You see, obviously this is like a stretch polygon, but if I have the Smooth Brush and a Sculptures Pro enabled, I can just add points very easily. Oops, let's do it with symmetry. And this is like a very simple thing to do. And in this mode where you have the flip normals, you can sculpt this and adjust it as you like. So you can use the same technique for if you're doing a character, you can do the mouth back in the same way, right? So for example, let's take the move topological. Let's push this, and I'm gonna make more like a thicker mouth bag. Not that you're ever gonna see this creature opening the mouth that big, but that gives us the room to do it if we need to. All right, so let's say that this is my mouth bag, then I'm happy with this. What I'll do now is I'm going to flip again. So now we're back to the normal normals. This is good for this. Anyway, so now we flip those normals, and then we can turn this back on. So now we have this nicely going, and we can adjust this obviously to fit more within the shape of the mouth that we want. All right, and obviously we can now go to zero measure. We can run the zero measure with groups and everything. Oh, because I use Sculptures Pro, you see I wrecked this one. So we can use the smooth groups, and that will run that sort of shape of, run that process of smoothing groups before it does the zero measure. So that's good. And let's make this like a proper fin actually. So I'm gonna do the back face masking trick. All right. So now I think we're in a good place to start blocking out some additional volumes and secondary shapes, right? So let's get rid of this. Go back to, no, let's just leave it as it is. Quick smoothing of all these. And what I like to do is I'm gonna add some subdivision, not too much. Let's see, I'm gonna use clay brush. Yeah, this is pretty good. And I'm also gonna switch to the smooth stronger, just because if I do something like this, I wanna be able to smooth this really, really quickly. So I'm gonna undo that, and I'm gonna hold the shift key and reduce the intensity of just my strong mood. So it's gonna be very, very strong the harder that I press, but it's also going to allow me to control very subtle changes in that smoothness by pressing softly, because I reduce the intensity. I think that's pretty much it, really. So we're gonna start blocking out some volumes. Let me see the chat really quickly. If there's any questions, guys, happy to answer that. I'm gonna spend like the next 10 minutes just free sculpting, like literally sculpting manually, but answering any questions you might have as well. Cool. So where will you use this creature? Is it for animation or concept? Yeah, I mean, it's not for an animation or anything. This is literally just to give you guys some context and some ideas, some techniques that you can use for the contest actually that we're hosting with XP Pen, called the Creatures of the Deep. So you can participate by creating your own creature of the deep and sharing it online, either in Instagram or our Discord channel. So you can do that. It's a pretty easy, simple way to do it. I'll share the link to the contest, or you can just go to the Academy. That there's like a big timer showing what the deadline for the contest is. But we have like the entire month of August. All right. So with this, what I'll do is I'm gonna start thinking about more of the underlying anatomy, and for that, I have these really cool images, especially the beluga whales. I mean, look at this. So this is what I mean about the secondary forms, just making sure that, let's say, this type of line or these volumes goes through. So all of these things, this is what I'm going to try to establish now that I have the main sort of form, right? Those are, to me, those are the secondary shapes. So if I were to do something like this, I think I think this is a walrus, right? So the folds of the thick skin, the how they, let's say, the eyes, or this section of the eyes um, fades into the cranium, or joins the cranium. Those things are the type of shapes that I'm going to look into or trying to incorporate. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to enable backface masking just so that I don't, especially in areas that are really thin. I don't want to. Let me show you. Without backface masking, in areas that are really thin, if you do this, you add, but then it's also going to damage this, right? So if I automatically protect this, I can enable backface masking, and then nothing is going to happen on the other side. So let's start by doing this. And this is something that I do for different projects, but in this case, I like to think about what the muscles would look like, and I can smooth this out. Again, I think I'm going to reduce the intensity even more. And I just go over the same area, smooth it out, keep it clean. But just thinking about, okay, there's going to be a set of muscles here. It could be similar to the back muscles in a human, let's say, or any mammal. But how are these things that are underneath the visible shape, like what's underneath, what's pulling and pushing these fins and make them work? Same thing with the mouth. So for example, this type of thing, I don't like, personally don't like these shapes, so that it goes like this. So I'm gonna try to go for something more, or I'm gonna try to fade it in a bit more, like it's more, not taper is the word, but let me just show you actually, rather than try to describe it. So just add volume, so the transition between, let's say, that top or that bottom lip and the rest of the whatever skeleton is underneath this creature feels grounded. But the key here, I think, and this is what I'm trying to show you guys, is that I'm doing a few strokes to add volume, and then constantly go back and smoothing that whole thing, right? Because if I start doing that, right, and then just add clay, it becomes really, really lumpy, and you lose track really easily, unless you're like very accustomed to the project, to the process. But you can lose track really easy of the main volumes and what you're going for. All right. Now for the head, we need to think about some also interesting structure. And same thing with the fins. So for example, this is an interesting area that could help me illustrate what I'm doing really, or what I'm thinking as I go through this. So we have this line, this fin going in. Maybe this is not the best angle. Hang on. Yeah. Okay. So we have this fin here that if you look at it, if you super simplify it and look at it from the side, it will be a thin surface like this. And then is meeting this other shape, which, it is the same but flipped. So it's kind of like this, right? So this is like the side view. And then if I were to do the top view, it will be the opposite, right? So if you look at it, from the top now, so this one will be quite thin, and this one would be wide. So my my thinking process when I'm doing this type of thing is not just like randomly placing shapes and adding volumes. It's actually thinking about how things would look cool, and at the same time make it functional. Like if you look at it and yeah, this is like a made-up creature, this doesn't exist, but I can trick you to believe that it could exist in a imaginary world, because functionally there are like some visual cues, some muscles, some volumes that that create that reference, that visual reference to something that is real. So you might look at this and go like, oh, this looks like a whale, or this looks like a shark, this looks like a walrus, an animal that exists and that and that has that or that you have that sort of visual library of how that animal would look like, and you go, okay, this kind of like work because it's similar to this thing. So anyway, the point is, when I look at these shapes, right now, I need to think, how does this thin line kind of like transitions into the next one? So maybe there's gonna be some kind of like muscle or tendon that wrap around here, or that spread maybe like so, right? So if you think about it in terms of I don't know. Sometimes I get a little bit deeper into this, and you don't really really need to do it. But let's say that if you're thinking about in terms of the circulation of this creature, right? There's gonna be maybe 3 hearts or whatever to pump the blood through all these areas, right? So you need to think about, okay, there's gonna be like a main artery type of thing going through those things. So maybe there's like some connection between those as well, right? And it sort of like spreads like that. Anyway, so this is what I'm thinking. And in practical terms, what it means is actually simpler than that. It just means that I will maybe use the standard brush, and I create, let me reset that. Something like this, and then I'll go back with the clay brush and make sure that transition of those shapes are nice and tidy. Right? So this is what I meant. That as I go through it, I see these 2 different shapes, and I start to think, how do they play with each other? So they're not just randomly placed, and at the same time trying to make it look cool. I think I want to flatten this even more. Kind of like that shape of the giant ray. How are we doing time? Okay, guys, I think I'm gonna have to wrap it up. Plus tomorrow, very soon actually, we have a class with the extra mile. So I need to grab some sleep. So here is another thing, right? So I'm just thinking in terms of the anatomy, of the human anatomy that I know, right? So how can I incorporate this into this creature to, again, to make the viewers, or like whoever watches this creature move or whatever, think, okay, this could exist. So I'm thinking like, let's say the platysma, right? Like this muscle here in the neck, when you go like this and make this expression, that's the sort of muscle that you can sort of see tensing up. So this one, could be something like this that shows that section, or like it's sort of like is more pronounced. And then if this was some sort of human mammal, really, it would have some like clavicles somewhere here, in a way, right? But anyway, this is not very accurate, but this is what I'm thinking when adding these volumes. And I just mentioned this not because, I'm not an expert in anatomy by any means. I just kind of like know some of the basic muscle groups, and I get by with those. I usually tend to collect a lot of reference if I'm doing like an anatomy project, or that requires anatomy. But the point is that I do know, or I have an idea of how things should look like, or work, so I can take some, I would say, liberties to add these type of things and go like, okay, this would be the platysma, right? And if this guy had like an sternum, like I can just make it a bit more pronounced and then see how I integrate, let's say, a pectoral like that, right? Even though it's not, but that's the type of thinking process. I guess that's what I'm trying to share with you guys right now. That there's an intentionality, not just placing random volumes, even though it might look a bit random. There is an idea behind the placement, and that's what I think is valuable when you're doing this process. That it feels intentional. It feels like, okay, this is a creature that could exist for sure, or not. If we if we successfully make it interesting, and you believe it could work or exist, that's the job done, really. All right, so I think we have like a pretty decent starting point compared to what we began this session with, and I think I'm going to add a bit more of the cranium shape here. All right, is there any other questions, guys? Anything else that you want me to cover before I wrap up? I'm going to exaggerate this a bit more. I want to make sure that it does feel quite obvious that there is like a muscle pulling from there. We need to come up with a name for these sessions, because they're like, because they're gonna be at midnight if I do them at this time, and we have this background music and we're chilling. We can we can name them differently so we can differentiate them from the other type of live streams that we do. Alrighty. Okay, I think we are in a good place to leave this be for a bit and then reevaluate shapes later on. All right. Yeah, so let me just show you the kind of like before and after, so that there's some kind of comparison of where we started and where we ended up with. So this is like the simple blockout, right? So hang on. So Shift S and then drop it here. Go back to this one. So again, not a big change in terms of the volumes or the main primary shapes. We're just starting to block out some of the secondary ones, but you can definitely see, hopefully, a weird sort of like creature merging from these forms, and that's really what it's all about. Really, just having some fun creating weird looking stuff. But yeah, so I think that's it. Obviously, there's opportunities for adding additional subtools, like let's say if we want to create the eyes and the teeth and all of that. And just keep in mind that even though I have a relatively clean topology, and we have, what is it, like, let's say 200,000 polygons, this is not by any means the final topology. So if we decide to add a dorsal fin later, then we can do that, and then we do another series measure. So I guess my advice for you guys, if you're doing these type of things, is not to get locked in to a single topology once you run the series measure. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I've seen in terms with, like, people that are new to ZBrush. They think, okay, once we do the series measure, that's it, I have to do that, otherwise I'll have to redo the whole process again. Just treat the series measure as another sketching tool. If you don't get what you need, just run it again until you have something that is pretty solid in terms of the design, that you're for sure not changing the volumes, the big masses, and the primary shapes, and then you can do a more proper topology. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Any do you have any advice for when it's hard to find good references, or any tips on where to find good references? Rhiannon, this so the question, like, it's a good question. I just don't know necessarily what you're asking for. Sorry. So when it's hard, like, what is the advice when okay, no, sorry, I read it wrong. So when you cannot find a good reference, any advice to find those references? I guess that's the question, right? Sorry. Yeah, so in that case, it really depends on what type of reference you want to use. So I know for this creature, I needed to use, let me bring those. I want to use these type of references because they are like underwater creatures. There's like an octopus, a sperm whale, a giant ray, a beluga whale. This is kind of like the squid sort of beak, which is crazy, but really, really interesting. So I know what to look for. If you're not necessarily know what references you're going to use, the best thing that you can do is just find the one that you think is going to give you a starting point. In my case, if I have to remove all of these and just go, I don't know, this one, right? So if I start with this single reference and go, okay, a blue whale, or this is not a blue whale, what's this? This is it doesn't matter. Yeah, you just start with this, right? So one single image, and then you get that in Instagram. Instagram has a really good algorithm to suggest similar images. So once you have this one, Pinterest is going to suggest very similar whales, or like images of the same type of whale, but at the same time, it's going to suggest things that could be similar. So you start kind of like going down the rabbit hole into a set of references that are really good because are similar to the one reference that you found useful. I don't know if that makes sense, but this is really how I started. I just created one, and then as I was looking for this is not exactly how it happens, but I'm going to show you something. So let's say this is the image that I started with, right? And then Pinterest suggested something else like these ones, and obviously all of these. But then in the same search, it suggested this one because it might have think, it has like similar patterns in terms of the color, similar shape. Maybe this is like Pinterest understood this as another whale, or is tagged as a whale. Doesn't matter, right? So I got a different image or a different reference that I can use for this. That is not a whale, but that happens through that organic process of searching and looking for references. So hopefully that helps. No worries, Randy. Glad that you like this hard surface. Yeah, we can do some hard surface as well at some point. Christian, yeah, usually those getting or gathering your references from Pinterest is a good way. Just be careful though, because nowadays Pinterest, unfortunately, it just suggests a bunch of AI stuff. So it's kind of like hard to find or hard to discern now which ones are AI generated and which ones are not. I'm, if sometimes if you cannot see the difference and it's a good reference, even though it is AI, you might want to use it. But yeah, so I'm gonna leave it here, guys. I think we are a good point here. Alrighty. So thank you so much, guys. It's been really cool, really nice chill session. I'm hoping to do more of these. So for those of you who actually enjoy this schedule a bit better, I'm hoping to do a few more of these. Just to wrap it up, actually, I'm going to show you something in case you're not aware. So if you go to the Pablander Academy, and for those of you who were not here before or you're not aware of this is where everything that I do and will do live from free tutorials, resources, and courses is all going to be in here. So if you go to events here at the top, right, this is where we post anything to do with live sessions like this. So this is the current live session with this kind of like more generic image of me doing this live session thing. But obviously, once we finish, so once this is finished, the recording of this finishes, then we will update let's say the thumbnail with the relevant content. So right now we're doing obviously this, so this could be part of that thumbnail, and then we'll just tag it with like the description of what we did. So at any point after a session like this, you can go to Pablander Academy, go to events, and you can search for it. So this is what I said before. So let's say if you want to rewatch one of the sessions that I had with Gio, you can just type Gio, and you see we've done two that are really cool. This one is in VR for Modeler. This one was really cool. This is the one that we did last week. Last week, yeah, I think it was last week. And we talked about the same thing. Gio showed us some really cool techniques and how he approaches the creature creation. So you can do that. Or if you, let's say, want to work on that beluga thing that I mentioned, so you can just type beluga and it gives you this. And all of these ones are sessions that I've done in the past. You can do, from way before, like an older session, the scarecrow, right? So this is a scarecrow that we did in October 2002. So all of them are here. The very first one, I think it was a zombie, or well, not the very first one, but there is a really old one with a zombie. So anyway, the search system or the search tags here, it's really powerful, and we've made a great effort to make sure that all the stuff are descriptive and tagged properly, so you can find things really easy. So for example, one more thing, we did this grenade, not grenade, so 3D modeler. There we go. So, or prop actually. So prop, you type it correctly. So these are 3 sessions that we did in the past few weeks, and we created this asset in Modeler, and then we just texture it. So, but this is the cool thing, that you can just type that and try to find the live sessions where I did, let's say, this one. So in the same way, I guess my point is that afterwards, if you want to see what's coming next, just go to events, to the events page. This is going to tell you what's coming and when it's coming. So next week, you can just check this one, click on that one, and you see where it's happening at what time. So this is today, July 30th at 10 p.m. in Australia time. So you will be able to see that. Yeah, that's it. Hopefully that helps. And hang on, there's some questions. Sorry. You could technically add AI to your Pinterest search and get rid of the AI. Oh yeah, that's cool. I haven't used that, so I don't know if that actually does that, but yeah, that's cool. Pablo, would you stream the whole process until texturing and rendering? Yeah, we'll see how we go. This is essentially to help you guys and give you techniques and on how to approach this for the contest. So I'm kind of like giving you I'm kind of like helping people that decide to join these live streams so that they have a better chance for the cool contests that we're running, and get basically you know the three prices that we have are pretty decent. But the first one, which is the tablet, the Magic Drawing Pad, I have it myself. It's really cool. And it's a really fun tablet. So as a first prize for this contest is fantastic. I'm gonna share a review of that relatively soon. I'm just still working on it, but just keep an eye on that in the YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, uh, appreciate if you do, and then just make sure that you turn the notifications so that when I upload it, you'll get it. Alternatively, just to plug one more thing here before I wrap up. Um, just because I think sometimes it's more about not knowing where things are. But if you go to the Poplander Academy and hit the newsletter, right? The newsletter is what I use on a weekly basis to send my subscribers a tips, tricks. I give you like a rundown of everything that went through that week. So maybe if I posted new videos or a new live stream or whatever, I will link to those in there, so you get it into your inbox, so you know what's new, what's recent, what is coming as well. So if you're interested, just go down here at the bottom where it says subscribe. You can do it in any page here at the bottom. So you can just subscribe here at any point. In fact, you can go to the events and just click on any event. And then if you scroll down here to subscribe, all the events have this one. So the idea is that when you subscribe to the newsletter, I will be able to send you direct messages that usually, or direct emails that have a bunch of tips. And this newsletter section actually has all the tips that I've shared in the past, which again are really cool because they're like sometimes random tips, but sometimes they're really cool. So you can search for, I don't know, the GeoBrush, right? So the GeoBrush, this is a couple of hidden features from the GeoBrush. And if you click on this one, right, it just gives you like it's like a tiny tip on how to access and how to find it, right? Or this ambient occlusion. Anyway, this is for, I'm not gonna do a tutorial on how to use the page, but I want to make sure that you guys are aware of these things, because we put a lot of effort into making this a very intuitive experience, but sometimes you might not know where things are. So the point I guess I'm trying to make is, if you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll get an email from myself with the tips and anything that has happened in the week. So this type of live stream will be recorded there as well, and I will send you that. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I'm glad that this slightly different timing is of help. Yep. So we did a couple of hours, so that's pretty good. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to keep doing this on a regular basis, or we can switch between the different time zones so that everyone can benefit from it. The last thing I'm going to say is, if you join the Discord server, make sure that you introduce yourself, share your stuff. We have a dedicated channel where you can start sharing things. I'll show you briefly. So here is the server. So we have already like a bunch of people like sharing stuff. This one from John is a new one. I haven't seen it. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so like just go in here and then you can just see what people are sharing, how they're progressing. This one from Chris as well. Chris is another extra miler as well. So that's gonna look sick. Really cool. Yep, so just go there. It has this tag and you can share it. If you don't want to join the Discord, you don't have to for the channel, for the contest. It's just you have some certain benefits of knowing when things are happening in this type of sessions. But if you want to, you can just use this tag in Instagram, and then I know that this is kind of like a work in progress for the channel. That's it from me, guys. Thank you again, and I will see you probably next week. So just keep an eye on the events, and yeah, you'll see it there. All right, have a good one. And for those of you who are here from the extra